236-1009 procurement requirements for continuing Part 236 of Title 49. 236-1009 procedural requirements. Positive train control implementation plan by April 16, 2010. Each host railroad required for the implement operation of the positive train control in accordance with the 236-1005B shall develop and submit accordance with the Statute 236-1011A positive train control implementation plan with the positive train control system required under Statute 236-1005. Filling out the positive train control implementation plan shall not accept the required filing for the NPI APTS positive train control safety plan, positive train controls development plan, or type of approval. After April 16, 2010, a host railroad shall file with the positive train control implementation plan become the host railroad with the mainline track segment which is required for the implementation operating with a positive train control system in accordance with the Statute 236-1005B, or request for amendment of the current and approved the positive train control implementation in accordance with the Statute 236-1021 if it intends to initiate new category of services of passenger or freight, or add, subtract, otherwise material, modify one or more lines of the required railroad for the installation of the positive train control is required. The host of the tenant railroads shall jointly follow the positive train control implementation address for the shared track of the host railroad is required to install and operate the positive train control system on a segment of the track of the tenant railroad that shares the same segment would have been required to install the positive train control system. The host railroad that had not otherwise been required to do so. If the railroad required to file a joint positive control implementation plan unable to jointly file a positive train control implementation plan according with the paragraphs A1 through A3 of this section, then each railroad shall separately file the positive train control implementation in accordance with the paragraph A1. Notify the associated administrator with the subject railroad where unable to agree with the positive control implementation jointly filed. Provided with the associated administrator with a comprehensive list of all the issues not agreement between the railroads would prevent with the subject of the railroads for the joint filing with the positive control implementation plan. Confer with the associated administrator to develop and submit with the positive control implementation immediately, except for all the subject of railroads. Each railroad filing with the positive control implementation plan shall report annually and anniversary original positive control implementation submission with it until the positive control system implementation is complete. It is progressive toward the fulfilling the goals outlined in the positive control implementation plan under the part including the progress towards PTC systems installation pursuant to the Statute 236-1005 onboard positive control apparatus installation. Use the positive control equipment the track segments pursuant to the Statute 236-1006 as well as the impedance to the completion of each of the goal type of approval. Each of the host railroad individually joint and with others such as the tenant railroad system suppliers which shall revert prior to simultaneously with the filing made in accordance with the paragraph A of this section. An unmodified type approval the previously issued with the associated administrator in accordance with the Statute 236-1013 or 236-1031B with the associated docket number. Positive control development plan requests a type of approval for positive control system with it does not have the type of approval. The positive control system with the previously issued with the type of approval requires one of the more variants of the positive control safety program subject to the conditions set forth in paragraph C with this section with or without type of approval. The document assessing with the type of approval does not necessarily since for the host railroad is not the territory for which the positive control system is required under the subpart notice of the product intention. NPI, a railroad made and loose submitted with the positive control development plan with the reference of the already issued type of approval submitted with the notice of the product intention, describing the other function of the proposed positive train control system, and if a railroad elects the notice for product intention in lieu of the positive control development plan or references existing type of approval of the positive control implementation plan and the positive control implementation plan otherwise except for the associated administrator. The associated administrator may grant provisional approval of the positive control implementation plan and provisional approval of the positive control implementation plan unless otherwise extended with the associated administrator is valid for the period of 270 days from the day of the approval of the associated administrator. The railroad must submit an update of the positive control implementation plan with either complete with the positive control development plan as defined in Statute 236-1013A and undated with the positive control implementation plan reference of already approved type of approval or a full positive control plan, safety plan within 270 days after the provisional approval. Within 90 days of the receipt of the update of the positive control implementation plan submitted with the notice of the product intention, associated administrator with approve or disapprove of the updated positive control implementation plan, notify the writing and effect of the railroad, update of the positive control implementation plan, and not approve with the notification will include the plan's deficiencies within 30 days of the receipt of the notification of the railroad. Other entity with the submitted with the plan shall correct all the deficiencies to resubmit the plan in accordance with this section of 236-1011 as applicable. If updated, the provisional approve of the positive control implementation plan not received with the associated administrator by by the end of the narrative indicated with the paragraph of the provisional approval given to the Positive Train Control Implementation Plan, automatically revoke. The revocation is retroactive with the day of the original Positive Control Implementation Plan notice of product intention were first submitted with the Associated Administrator. Positive Control Safety Plan and Positive Control System certification. The following apply with each of the Positive Control Safety Plan, Positive Control System certification, Positive Control System, Positive Train Control System certification for the Positive Train System. Positive Train Control System may be obtained with the submitting with an acceptable Positive Train safety plan with a Positive Train System with a subject with the type of the approval of the safety case of an element obtained with the Positive Train Control deployment plan must be incorporated with the reference within the Positive Train Control safety plan is subject to finalization of human factors analysis contained in the Positive Control development plan. Each Positive Control safety plan requirement under the Statute 236-1015 shall be supported with the information analysis sufficient to establish that the requirements for the subpart has been satisfied if the Associated Administrator finds the Positive Control safety plan, Positive Train Control safety plan, supporting documentation, supporting finding with the system comply with the support of the Associated Administrator may approve the Positive Train Control safety plan with the Associated Administrator approve the Positive Control safety plan. The railroad shall receive a Positive Control safety system certification for the request of the subject of the Positive Train Control system and shall implement the Positive Train Control system according to the Positive Train Control safety plan as required with the Positive Train Control system shall not be used in service until they've received the FRA Positive Train Control System certification and receive the Positive Train Control System certification unless the FRA receives and approves that it's applicable. Positive Train Control Safety Plan request for expedited certification are as defined in Statute 236-1013A. Plan contents for the note that the Positive Train Control Implementation Plan receives approval unless it complies with the Statute 236-1031. No railroad shall receive the type of approval of the Positive Train Control System certification unless the applicable Positive Train Control Development Plan and Positive Control Safety Plan respectively comply with the Statute 236-1013-1015 respectively. All matters fulfilled in accordance with the subpart may be also in the English language and have been translated into English attested as true correct. Each filing or reference into the section may include a request of the full, partially confidential, and accordances. With Statute 20911 of the chapter, if it is confidential, the request for the portion of any applicable document, the additional of the filing requirements under Statute 20911 of the chapter, the person filing the document shall also file with a copy of the original unreacted document, mark it indicated with the portions of the reacted document confidential version without obstructing the original document contents. Supporting documentation, information, issuance of the type of the proof of the Positive Train Control System certification is contingent until the FRA has confidence for this implementation operation for the subject of the Positive Train Control System. The confidence may be based on the FRA's monitored field testing and independent assessment performed in accordance with the Statute 236-1035 and 236-1017 respectively. Upon request of the FRA, the railroad requesting the type of the proof of the Positive Train Control System certification must engage in field testing independent assessment performed in accordance with the Statute 236-1035 and 236-1017 respectively to support the assertions made in any plan with the submitted under the subpart. The assertions include any of the plan's contents requirements under the subpart. G. The FRA conditions reconsiderization modification is necessary to ensure safety. The FRA may attach a special condition with approving of the Positive Control Implementation Plan with issuing the type of the approval of the Positive Train Control System certification. After granting the type of the approval of the Positive Train Control System certification, the FRA may reconsider the type of the approval of the Positive Train Control System certification upon revelation of any of the following factors concerning the contents of the Positive Train Control Development Plan or Positive Control Safety Plan. Potential error, fraud. 1. Potential invalidated assumption determined that as a result in service of the experience one or more of the unsafe events calling for the into question of the safety analysis supporting the approval. 3. During the FRA reconsiderization, according with the paragraph of the Positive Train Control System may remain in its use, otherwise consistent with the applicable law or regulation, the FRA may impose the special condition for the use of the Positive Train Control System. After the FRA reconsiders accordance with the paragraph, the FRA may dismiss its reconsiderization, continue to recognize the existing FRA approved type of approval with the Positive Train Control System certification, allow continued operation under such condition the Associated Administrator deems necessary to ensure safety, or 3. Revoke or type of the type of approval of the Positive Train Control System certification, direct the railroad to cease operation where the Positive Train Control Systems are required under the subpart And H, the FRA, the associate administrator with the person designated representative shall be afforded with reasonable access for the monitor, testing and inspecting process, procedure, facilities, document records, assigning testing materials, artifact, training materials, programs, any other information used for the design, development, manufacture, testing, implementation, and or operation for this well, the interview any personnel. Associated with the positive train control system for the type of the proof of the positive train control system, the certification has been requested and provided, or to determine whether a railroad has been in compliance with the subpart of the foreign regulatory entity verification information has been certified under the auspice of the foreign regulatory entity recognized by the associate administrator may at an associate administrator's sole discretion be accepted and independently verified and validated with even support each railroad development of the positive train control safety program. Plan. Within the process of the type of the positive control development, positive train control development plan, and the positive train control safety plan, within 30 days of the receipt of the positive train control development plan and positive train control safety plan, the associate administrator will either acknowledge the receipt, and request more information to consider the practical considering the scope, the complexity, and the novelty of the product of the change. The FRA will approve of the condition of the denial of the positive train control development plan within 60 days of the date on which the positive train control development plan was filed. Or the FRA will approve within the condition of denying the positive train control safety program within the 100 days of the 80 days of the day of the positive control safety plan was filed. If the FRA is not approved with the condition of the denial of the positive control development plan or positive control safety plan within 60 days of the 100 days window of the applicable, the FRA will provide submitting the party with a statement of reason as to why the submission has not yet been acted upon or its projected deadline, which is an approval of the denial will be issued. Any further consultants or inquiries will be resolved. Alright, Statute 236-1011, Positive Train Control Implementation Plan Contents Requirement. The contents of the Positive Train Control implementation filed pursuant to the subpart shall, at the minimum, describe the functional requirements that the proposed system must meet, how the Positive Train Control Railroad intends to comply with the Statute 236-1009 CD, how the positive train control will provide with the interoperable the system between the host and the alternate railroads on the track segment required to be equipped with the positive train control system under the subpart will include the relevant provision of the agreement executed by the applicable the railroad in place for the achievement of interoperability, list all the methods used to obtain the interoperability, identify any of the railroads respective to which an interoperability agreement that has not been achieved as of the time of the plan has been followed, particular obstacles that encountered with the preventive the resolution of the further steps planned to overcome those obstacles. How to extent with the practical with the positive train control system will be implemented to address the greater risk to the public of the railroad employees before area with the lesser risk. The sequence and schedule within the track segments will be equipped with the basis of those decisions shall also be the minimum address for the following risk factors by the track segment. The segment traffic characteristics as a typical annual passenger and freight train volume of the poison of toxic inhalation or shipment load residual sediment operational characteristics for the current method of the operation, including the presence of the absence of the lock signal system, number of the track, the maximum allowable train speed, including the planned modifications, and 3, the route attributes bearing on the risk, including the rule grades and extreme curvature. The following information relating to the rolling stock will be equipped with the positive train control technology. The schedule is equipped with the rolling stock of December 31st, 2015. All documents and information required in the Statute 236-1006. 4, unless the tenant railroad is filling its own positive train control implementation plan, the host railroad positive train control implementation shall attest that the host of the railroad has been made a formal written request to each of the tenant of the railroad requesting the identification of each of the items of the rolling stock to be positive train control of the system, equipped with the date of each of which will be equipped and include each of the tenant railroad with the response of the host railroad written with the request may be in accordance with the paragraph A65141A of the section. The number of the wayside device with required for each of the track segment of the installation schedule to comply with the wayside equipment installation by the December 31st, 2015. Identification of each of the track segment of the railroad as a mainline, non-mainline track with the positive control implementation plan includes the MTEA as defined in the Statute 236-1019. The positive train control implementation shall identify the tracks included the MTEA mainline track with reference to the MTEA, and the extent of the railroad determined in the risk-based prioritization required with the paragraph A4 of the section is not practical for the basis of the determination, and the dates associated with the positive train control development plan, positive train control safety plan are applicable with the submitted FRA in accordance with the 2036-1009. B. Additional Class 1 railroad positive train control implementation plan requirements each Class 1 railroad shall include and its positive control implementation plan, a strategy for fulfilling deployment of the positive control safety plan, describing the criteria that it will apply to identifying the additional railway lines on its own network, rail lines, and either in control of the engaged joint operation with which the full and partial deployment of the positive train control technologies and appropriate beyond those required with the equipment of those under the subpart. Such the criteria shall be included with the consideration of the policies established in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 20156, Railroad Safety Risk Reduction program. Regulations issued thereunder are as well as no safety business the benefits that may accrue. In the technology implementation of the 10 plan and the risk reduction program, the first required to be filed with accordance with the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 20156. Any regulation promulgated thereunder with the specification rail line selected for the full and partial deployment of the positive train control under the criteria identified in its positive control implementation plan, noting that in the paragraph that shall be construed with the accrue an expectation or the requirement of additional railway lines beyond for those required to be equipped with the submarine must be equipped with, and those such lines will be equipped during the period of the primary implementation ending on December 31st, 2015. As used in paragraph, the paragraph implementation of the positive train control system refers to the pursuant into the subpart H of this part with the technology amended in the positive train control system that does not employ all the functionalities required by this subpart. FRA review will be within 90 days of the receipt of the positive train control implementation, but the associated administrator will approve or disapprove of the plan with the notify of the writing of the affected railroad other entity. If the positive train control implementation plan is not approved, the notification will include the plan deficiencies within 30 days of the receipt of the notification of the railroad or other entity of the submitted with the plan shall correct all deficiencies, resubmit the plan in accordance with the statute 236-1009, paragraph A with the section is applicable to subpart H of the railroad. It elects to install the positive train control system, then will, and when not required to do so, may elect to proceed under the subpart H of this part. Upon receipt with the positive control implementation plan, notice of provided product intention, positive control development plan, and positive control safety plan, the FRA posts on its public website notification notice of the receipt, reference of the public docket in which the copy of the filing has been placed. The FRA may consider any public comment with each of the documents to extent and the practical within the time allowed by the law without delaying implementation of the positive train control systems. The positive train control implementation plan shall be maintained with the reflect of the railroad's most recent positive train control deployment plans until the positive train control system deployments required under this subpart are complete. All right, section 236-1013. Positive train control development plan note for the product intention consent with the requirement for the type of approval for the positive train control system obtained with the type of approval of the FRA. The positive train control deployment plan shall be filled in accordance with the statute 236-1009 shall include a complete description of the positive train control system, include a list of the positive train control system components of their physical relationship within subsystems and systems, a description of the railroad operations categories of the operation which the positive train control system is designated to be used, including the train movement, the density of the passenger rate with operating with speed, including a thorough explanation of the intent of the compliance with the statute 236-1007, the track characteristics of the railroad operating rules, an operating concept document, including the list of the function of the complete description of all the functions within the period of the train control system will perform to enhance the preserve safety of the documentation, describe the manner in which the positive train control system architectural satisfy requirements, preliminary human factors and analysis, including complete description of all human-machine interface with the impact of the interoperability requirements on the same, analysis for the applicability of the positive train control system with the requirements of the subpart A through G of this part of no longer apply with the satisfy of the positive train control system using an alternate method of complete explanation of the manner in those with the requirement otherwise fulfilled. 7. Prior service the restoration mitigation plan with the description of necessary security measure for the system and the description target safety level of MTTHE for major subsystems defined in subpart H for this part, with including the requirements of the system available with the description of all the backup nets for the operation and any critical assumption associated with the target levels. 9. A complete description of how the positive train control system will enforce the authorities and signal indications. 10. A description of the deviation which may be proposed under statute 236-1029C if applicable. 11. A complete description of how the positive train control will appropriately and timely enforce integrated with the hazard detectors in accordance with the statute 236-1005 C3, if applicable. If the associated administrator finds that the system description described in the positive control deployment plan would satisfy the requirements of the positive train control system under this subpart, the application made that the reasonable showing of the system built with the stated requirements will achieve the level of safety mandated for the such of the system under the statute 236-1015. The associated administrator may grant the number of the type of approval for the system. Each type of approval shall be valid with a period of 5 years, subject to the automatic indefinite extension provided with the lease for the positive train control system certification. If the subject positive train control system has been issued within the period of not revoked. The associated administrator may prescribe the special conditions, amendments, or restrictions to any type of approval necessary for the safety. If submitted with the notice for the provided with the intention must contain the following information: description of the railroad operation categories, operation with which for the proposed positive train control system is designed to be used, including the train movement, the density of passenger freight over operating speeds, including thorough explanation intended compliance with the statute 236-1007, track characteristics of the railroad operating rules. An occupational concept of the document includes a list of will complete the description of all the functions for the proposed positive train control system will perform to enhance the preserved safety. The description of target safety levels of the MTTHE's some major subsystem defined in subpart H of this part, including the requirements for the system availability for the description of all backup the method of the operation and any critical assumption associated with the target level. The complete description of how the proposed positive train control system will enforce the authorities and single indication of the complete description of how the proposed positive control system will appropriately and timely enforce all the integrated hazard detectors in accordance with the statute 236-1005 C3 if applicable. 236-1015 positive train control safety plan content and with the requirements of the positive train control system certification. Before placing the positive train control system required under the part of the service, the host railroad must submit with the FRA with a positive control safety plan with receipt of the positive control system certification and associated administrator filed with the positive control safety plan supporting the documentation supporting the findings. The system complied with the part of the associated administrator and approved with the positive train control system safety plan issued the positive train control system certification receipt of a positive train control system certification affirms that the positive train control has been reviewed and approved by the FRA in accordance with the meets the requirements of this part. The positive train control system submitted under the subpart with the reference to the utilized with accordance with the subpart with any type of approval that previously issued by the associated administrator to any of the railroad provided by the railroad. Maintains the continually update with the positive train control PVL pursuant to the statute 236-123, show the supplier with which the procuring with the positive train control system that is established and can maintain a quality control system. The positive train control system design, manufacturer, acceptability, associated administrator, quality control system must include the process of the product supplier with the vendor promptly in the early report safety relevant failure and previously unidentified hazards to each of the railroad using the product provided with the applicable license and information the positive train control safety plan and submitted in accordance with the subpart shall include the FRA approval of the positive train control deployment plan if applicable. The FRA issued the type of approval specifically rigorous document each of the various findings, including the significance of each of the variances between the positive train control system and if applicable the operating conditions described in the applicable positive train control deployment plan from as described in the positive train control safety plan. The test that there is no other such variations. The test that there are no variations between the positive train control system and the applicable operating conditions and the described in the applicable positive train control deployment plan with the described the positive train control safety plan and to test that the system otherwise was built in accordance with the applicable positive train control deployment plan or positive control safety plan and achieve the level of safety represented therein. And the positive control safety plan which include the same of the information required for the positive control deployment plan under statute 236-1013A of the positive train control deployment plan has been filed and approved prior with the filing of the positive train control safety plan. Positive train control safety plan may incorporate the positive train control deployment plan with a reference with exemption with the final human factors analysis should be provided with the positive train control safety plan shall contain the following additional elements. 1. A hazard log consisting of the comprehensive description of all the safety relevant hazards not previously addressed in the vendor supplier with the address for the during life cycle of the positive train control system, including the maximum threshold limit for each for the hazard. For unidentified hazard for the threshold shall be exceeding of each one occurrence through the description of safety assurance of concept that used to be used in the safety development including an explanation of the design principles and assumptions of risk assessment of this built with the positive train control system to describe the hazard mitigation analysis, including complete comprehensive description of each of the hazards for the mitigation, the techniques used, the complete description of the safety assessment, verification, and validation process of the applied to whether the positive train control system and their results, whether these processes are addressed with the safety principle described in Appendix C, this part with directly using only the safety criteria, not all. Completion description of the railroad training plan with the railroad contractor employee for the supervisor necessary to ensure the proper installation, implementation, operation, maintenance, repair, inspection, testing, and modification of the positive train control system. The complete description of the specific procedure for the test equipment necessary to ensure the safety, proper installation, repair, implementation, or operation, maintenance, repair, inspection, testing, and modification of the positive train control system of the railroad. Establish safety control hazards that are appropriately mitigated with these procedures. Include the calibration requirements shall consist with explain the deviation from the equipment manufacturer for the recommendations. A complete description of any of the additional warning to be placed in the operation maintenance manual in the same manner as specified in the statute 236-919. All warning labels to be placed on the equipment is necessary to be ensure safety. A complete description of the configuration of the revision control measure for the design to ensure the railroad and its contractors does not adversely affect the safety function requirements and the safety critical hazard mitigation process is not compromised with the result of any such change. A complete description of all the initial implementation testing procedures necessary to establish safety functioning requirements are met with the safety critical hazard with the appropriate mitigated. A complete description of all the post-implementation testing, validation, and monitoring procedures, including the intervals necessary to establish the safety function requirements. Safety critical hazard mitigation processes, safety critical tolerance are not compromised over the time through use and after maintenance, adjusting repairs, replacements if it is performed. 2. A complete description of 12. The complete description of each of the record necessary to ensure the safety of the system associated with the periodic maintenance, inspection, testing, adjustment, repairs, replacements, and the system resulting from the conditions, including the record of the component of the failure as a result of the safety relevant hazard. Safety analysis determine whether when the system is in operation, any risk remains for the unintended incursion for the road worker was due to the human error. The analysis reveals any such risk. The positive train control deployment plan or positive train control safety plan shall be described how that risk will be mitigated. A more detailed description of any alternative arrangement as already provided within Statute 236-1005A11, the complete enforcement, a complete description of the how the post-train category system, positive train control system will enforce the authority of the signal indication unless they already completely provided for the positive train control deployment plan. A description of how the positive train control safety plan complies with the Statute 236-1019F if applicable. 17. A description of deviation operational requirements of the en-route failures as specified in Statute 236-1029C with the applicable unless already completely provided from the positive train control deployment plan. 18. A complete description of how the positive control system will appropriately, timely enforce all integrated with the hazard detectors in accordance with the Statute 236-1005. The emergency with the plan with maintained with the temporary rerouting plan with it indicated with how the operation with the subject of the positive train control system will take advantage of the benefits provided under Statute 236-1005G through K. And 20. The documents and information required under Statute 236-1007 and 236-1033. A list of each location where the locomotive will fail on board positive train control apparatus will regularly be exchanged with the repair pursuant to Statute 236-1029B6 to take a list of each of the movement that could be taken place in the pursuant to Statute 236-1029B6 if the movements potentially could exceed 500 miles. The following additional requirements apply to non-vital overlay. The positive train control system proposed an overlay with existing method of operation not built with accordance with the safety assurance of the principle set forth in Appendix C of this part must be in satisfaction with the associated administrator to be shown with reliable execute with the function set with the fourth in Statute 236-1005, frame at least for 80% with the reduction risks associated with the accident preventable with the function set with the fourth in Statute 236-1005 with all the effects of the change associated with the positive train control system are taken into account. The supporting risk assessment should be evaluated at all intended to change with the railroad operations consistent with the introduction of the new system. Main level of safety each subsequent system modification equal to the greater than the level of safety of the previous positive train control system. With vital overlay, the positive train control system proposed the new constructed track or as an overlay with existing method of operation built within accordance with the safety assurance principle set forth in Appendix C of the part of the most of the satisfaction associated with administrators be shown reliable execute with the function set forth in 236-1005 5. 2. Have sufficient documentation demonstrating the positive train control system has built, fulfilled for the safety assurance of the principles set forth in Appendix C of this part. The supporting risk assessment may be abbreviated at this term, the U for the subpart, H for this part. 3. The standalone positive train control system proposed for the newly constructed track and an existing track for which no signal system exists, the replacement for the existing signal of the train control system, and otherwise to replace the material modified with the existing method of operation shall reliably execute functions required under Statute 236-1005 and be demonstrated to do so for the FRA satisfaction, and have the positive train control safety straightforward letter establishing the high degree of the confidence for the system will not introduce the new hazard. Those that will not mitigate the supporting risk assessment shall evaluate all intended for the change of the railroad operation in relation for the introduction of the new system shall examine any of the detail of the direct and indirect effects. All change of the method of the operation mixed system with the positive train control system combined overlay standalone vital but non-vital characteristics that proposed in the railroad shall confer with the associated administrator regarding the appropriate structure of the safety case of analysis. When determining whether the positive train control safety plan fulfills the requirements under the paragraph D of this section, the associated administrator may consider all the available evidence concerning with reliability, availability of the proposed system, any of the and all safety consequences of the proposed changes, in any case of the positive train control safety plan lacks adequate data regarding safety impact of the proposed change. The associated administrator may request the necessary data from the applicants. If the requested data is not provided, the associated administrator may find that the potential hazards could or will arise. If the positive train control safety plan applied to the system designated to replace existing certified positive train to replace an existing certified positive train control system, the positive train control safety plan will be approved. Provided with the positive train control safety plan establishes a higher degree of confidence for the new system will provide with the level of safety not less than the level of safety provided by the system to be replaced. H. When reviewing the issue with the potential data of for example, the errors arising from the data supplied with the other business systems needed to execute the braking algorithm, survey data of the need of the location, the determination, the mandatory directives issued through the computer-aided dispatching system, the positive train control safety plan must include the careful identification of each of the risk with the discussion, each of the applicable mitigation, if appropriate case, such as a case within which residual risk after mitigation of the substantial with the underlying method of the operation with a significant alternative of the associated administrator may require submission with a quantitative risk and assessment addressing these potential errors. Statute 236-117, the independent third-party verification and validation. The positive train control safety plan must be supported by the independent third-party assessment when the associated administrator with the conclude the necessary based upon the criteria set forth in Statute 236-913 and 9113, 236-913, with the exemption of the consideration for the methodology for the risk assessment with the Statute 236-913. G2-7 shall apply only with the extent of the comparative of the risk assessment was required to the extent practicable the FRA makes the determination not later with the review with the positive train control implementation plan that the accompanying positive control deployment and positive train control safety plan with the independent assessment that required with the assessment may apply with the entire system or a designated portion of the system. If the positive train control system is undergone with the independent assessment in accordance with the selection of the host railroad may submit with the associated administrator with a written request for the FRA confirming whether a particular entity will be considered an independent third party pursuant to this section. The request should include the supporting of the information identifying with the paragraph C of this section. FRA may request further information to make the determination provided with the determination writing as used within this section. The independent third party means technically competent with the entity responsible to do and compensated with the railroad and association on behalf of one or more of the railroads. This is independent of the positive train control system supplier or vendor and entity that is owned with the control by the supplier or the vendor. This is under common ownership of the control, whether the supplier or the vendor that otherwise involved in the development of the positive control system was not considered the independent within the meaning of this section. The independent third party's assessment shall be minimum consistent for the activities result with the production of documentation meeting the requirements Appendix F to do the part unless expected with the other part with the FRA order or waiver the information provided that has been certified under the auspices of the foreign railroad regulatory and any recognized by the associated administrator may the associated administrator discretion be accepted with having it being independently verified. Alright, your mainline track exemptions. 236-1019. Scope of procedure. This section pertains exclusively to the exemption of the rule of the trackage over the schedule to intercede with the commuter of the passenger ship to provide with the considerization mainline track that requires the installation of positive train control system. One or more intercede with the commuter passenger railroad, the freight railroad conducting joint passenger freight operation over the segment, same segment of the track main file, a mainline track exclusion addendum of the MLT or to the PT positive track control implementation requesting the designated track that is not main line with the subject of the coordinate with the set forth in paragraph B and C of the section. No track shall be designated as the R of the terminal unless it is identified in the MIL-T as part of the FRA and approve the positive train control implementation. Passenger terminal exemption. The FRA will consider the exemption in the case of the track is exclusively a yard terminal track for the support of the regular scheduled intercity commuter passenger service where the MTEA describe the detailed physical boundary of the trackage in question that you with the characteristics of the track and signal charts and all of the following apply. 1. The maximum authorized speed for all the movement is not greater than 20 miles per hour. The maximum then enforced for the any applicable onboard positive train control employment that each will comply with the order terminal interlocking rules of the effect prohibiting reverse movements other than the signal indication without the dispatcher permission. Either of the following conditions exist. No freight operations are permitted. 2. The freight operations are permitted but no passengers will be aboard. The passenger trains will be defined limits for the limited operation exemption. The FRA will consider the exemption of the case of the track segment if you with the limited operations operating in accordance with the Statute 2360 for the part under one of the following set for the condition the track is used with the limited to the operation of at least one passenger railroad subject to at least one of the following conditions. All trains are limited to restricted speed to the temporary separation of the passenger. Other trains are maintained with the provided with the paragraph E of this section. 3. A passenger service is operated under the risk mitigation supported submitted to the all railroads and involved with the joint with the operation approved by the FRA. The risk mitigation plan must be supported by the risk assessment establishing the proposed mitigation will receive the level of safety not less than the level of safety will be obtained with the operation with the conduct under the paragraph C1 and C2 of this section. Passenger services are operated with the segment of the track of the freight railroad that is not class 1 railroad on which less than 15 million gross tons of freight traffic is transported annually on which one of the following conditions apply. If the segment is unsigned, unsignaled, and no more than 4 regularly scheduled passenger trains are operated during a calendar day. If the segment is signaled with the equipped with the traffic control signal, automatic block signaling system, cab signal system, or no more than 12 regularly scheduled passenger trains are operated during a calendar day. 3. Not more than 4 passenger trains per day are operated with the segment of the track of the Class 1 freight railroads on which less than 15 million gross tons of freight traffic is transported annually. A limited operation exemption under paragraph then subject for the FRA review and approval of the FRA may require the collision hazard analysis to identify the hazard may require the specific mitigation that be undertaken with the operation under such any exemption of should be conducted subject to the terms and conditions for the approval and the mainline track exclusion is subject to the periodic review. A temporary separation is used for this section. Temporary separation means limited partnership passengers and freight operations do not operate within any segment of the shared track during the same period as also refers to the process of the physical arrangement of the both and safe ensure the temporal separation is established and maintained at all times of the use of the exclusion authorities under the mandatory directives is not to be established sufficient to establish the temporary separation for the achieve the procedure to ensure the temporal separation should be included with the verification checks between the passenger freight operation with the effect of the physical means to positively ensure the segregation of the passenger and freight operation in accordance with the paragraph positive train control safety plan. The requirement of the non-positive train control safety plan filed after the approval of the positive train control implementation plan with the MTEA should be approved of the FRA unless the assets attest that no change except those include the FRA approved the request for amendments have been made with the information of the positive train control implementation and the MTEA requirement ordered by paragraph B and C of this section. Designation modification subsequent approval of the positive train control implementation positive train control safety plan. Railroad seeks to modify which track of the track should be designated with the main line, not main line, shall request the modification of this positive train control implementation plan. Positive control safety plan applicable in accordance with statute 236-1021. 236-1020 reserved. 236-1021 discontinuances, material modifications, amendments. No changes defined in section of the positive train control system, the positive train control implementation, positive train control deployment plan, and positive train control safety plan shall be made unless the railroad files a request of amendment to applicable the positive train control implementation, positive train control deployment, and positive train control safety alignment. The associated administrator approved the request for approval. The approval of the request is in accordance with the approved paragraph A of the section of the railroad shall immediately adopt and comply with the amendment. In lieu of the separating filing under the part 235 of the chapter in railroad may request an approval of the discontinuance of material modification signal for the train control system by filing the request for amendment to the positive train control implementation, positive train control deployment, or positive train control safety plan with the associated administrative request made in accordance with the section will not be approved under the FRA unless the request is included in the information listed in the statute 235.10 for this chapter. The railroad provides for the FRA upon requesting additional information request necessary to evaluate the request for amendment, including those proposed modifications, the reason for each of the modifications, the change of the positive control implementation, deployment, or safety plan, each modification of each of the positive train control safety system, approximate timetable for the filling of the positive train control deployment, safety, or both implemented and pertinent to the implementation plan, the explanation of whether each of the positive control safety plans provide planned, unplanned change of the effect of the type of the approval of the positive train control deployment required with the submission and approval in accordance with the statute 236/1013. Now the new positive train control deployment following the submission and approval in accordance with the statute 236/1015 for the new positive train control safety plan for the positive train control system. Unplanned changes that do not affect the type of the approval of the positive train control deployment plan require submission of the approval for the new positive train control safety plan. Unplanned changes that are affecting the system safety that have not been undocumented with the positive train control safety plan with the impact of the unplanned change of the positive train control system safety has not been yet determined. 4. Plan changes may be implemented after they undergone suitable regression testing for the demonstration of the satisfaction associated administrative they have been correctly implemented, but the implementation does not degrade safety. Plan changes are changes affecting the safety system of the positive train control safety plan that have been included but all required analysis under the statute 236. 1015. Impact of these changes of the positive train control system has been incorporated to an integral part of the approved positive train control safety plan safety analysis. If the FRA, the request for amendment includes the request for the approval of the discontinuance of material modification of the single or train control system, the FRA publishes the notice for the FRA Register or the Federal Register of the application will invite the public comment with accordance with the Part 211 of this chapter. Alright, when considering the request for amendment, the FRA will review the issue for the discontinuance of the material modification, determining whether the granting of the request for the public interest consistent with the railroad safety, taking into the consideration all change of the method of the operation system functionality with the normal powers of train control system availability, with the case of the system failed state with the unavailable to contemplate with the conjunction with the installation of the positive train control system. If the railroad submitted the request for application amendment of the FRA request for performing the field testing in accordance with the statute 236/1035, engaging with the verification validation in accordance with the statute 236/1013, FRA may issue the discretion with the new type of the approval number of the positive train control system modified under this section. Changes requiring filing on the request for amendment that accept the provided in paragraph I within a request for amendment shall be filed with the request the following. 1. Discontinue with the positive train control system other similar appliance device. Decrease for the positive train control system. Limit of the exclusion. Removal of the positive train control system of the track segment is modification of the safety critical element of the positive train control system. Modification of the positive train control system that affects the safety critical functionality of any other positive train control system in which the operator. It's discontinuity not requiring the filing of the request for amendment that is not necessary for the file of the request for amendment for the following discontinuity requires removal of the positive train control system for the track of the roof of the abandonment of the formal proceeding. Removal of the positive train control devices used and provided the protection against the unusual contingencies such as landslide, burn bridge, high water, high wide load, tunnel protection when the unusual contingency no longer exists. The removal of the positive train control device that are used for the movable bridge that has been permanently closed for the formal approval of another government agency is mechanically secured in the closed position of the rail traffic. For removal of the positive train control system from the surface of the period not exceeding 6 months with the necessity of the catastrophic occurrence with such as derailment, flood, fire, hurricane, or earthquake. J. Change of the not requiring the filing with a request for amendment. The resulting change of the positive train control system will comply with any part of the positive train control safety plan, but this part is not necessary to file an approval to decrease the limits of the system when it is involved. The decrease of the limits of the positive train control system and interlocking switches. The rail movable point frogs are not involved. 2. The removal of an electrical mechanical lock signal is used in lieu thereof the hand-operated switch in positive train control where the train speeds are over such that the switch does not exceed 20 miles per hour, and use of these devices has not been part of the consideration for approval of the positive train control safety plan. The removal of the electrical mechanical lock signal, you signal the lieu thereof the hand-operated switch of the positive train control system, which trains are not permitted to clear with the main track of such a switch, or even those devices have not been part of the consideration for approval of the positive train control safety plan. Modifications not requiring the filing of the effort request for amendment that result in the arrangement complying with any approved the positive train control safety part that is not necessary to file an application for the approval of the following modifications. Modification that is required to comply with any of the Federal Railroad Administration of any section of Part 236 of its title. Installation device used to provide with protection against the unusual contingencies such as landslide, burn bridges, the high water, higher wide load ragging, equipment eliminating of the existing track other than second main track, extension shortening of the passenger siding, or the temporary permanent arrangement of the existing system necessities highway rail grade separating construction temporary arrangement within the removed 6 months following the completion of the construction. 236-1023 errors and malfunction. Each railroad implementation of the positive train control system of the property shall be established with a continual update with the positive train control property vendor list. That includes all the vendors and supply of the positive train control system, subsystem components, and the associated product for the process for the system. Wide with the positive train control product vendor list shall be made available to the Federal Railroad Administration upon request. The railroad shall specify whether it's in the positive train control safety plan with all the contractual arrangements with the hardware and software supplier of the vendor for the immediately notification between the parties of any of the all safety critical software site failures, upgrades, the patches, revisions, as well as any hardware repairs, replacement, or other modification for their positive train control system, subsystems, and components. The vendor or supplier will receive the report of the annual system safety critical failure of the product with the shall promptly notify all the railroads that are using the product whether or not the other railroads have the experience of the report of the failure of the safety critical system, subsystem, the component. 3. Notification of the supplier to any of the railroads shall include the explanation for the supplier of the reason for the such notification for the circumstances associated with the failure, any recommendation, mitigation, and actions to be taken pending the determination for the route with the cause of the final correction or action. C. The railroad shall 1. Specify the process for the procedure for the positive train control safety plan for the action upon the receive the notification safety critical failure as well as receive the safety critical upgrade with the patch of revision, repair, and placement modification, identifying the configuration, revision, control measure of the positive train control safety plan that are designed to ensure the safety function with the requirements for the safety critical hazard mitigation process are not compromised as a result of any of the change. If the change can be audited, the railroad shall provide with the applicable vendor supply with the railroad procedure of the action with the notification of the safety critical failure, upgrade, patch, or revision for the positive train control system, subsystem components of the procedure product. This process for the action to be taken until the faulty system, subsystem components have been adjusted, repaired, or replaced. After the product is placed in service, the railroad shall maintain a database for the all safety relevant hazards set forth in positive train control safety plan that has not been previously identified with the positive train control safety plan. If the frequency of the safety relevant hazards exceed the threshold set forth in the positive train control safety plan has not been previously identified, and appropriate risk analysis of the railroad shall notify the applicable vendor for the supply with the FRA for the failure of the malfunction, defective condition, decrease eliminated with the safety functionality. Keep the applicable vendor with the supplier with the FRA praised on a continual basis of the status of any of the all subsequent failures. Take prompt countermeasure to reduce, eliminate the frequency of the safety relevant hazards below the threshold identified with the positive train control safety plan. Each notification of the Federal Railroad Administration by this section shall be made within 15 days after the vendor supplier with the railroad discovered the failure, malfunctions, defective condition. However, the report that is due with the Saturday or Sunday may be delivered on the following Monday, and one of it is due on the holiday may be delivered on the next business day. Be transmitted in a manner for acceptable associated administrative and most expeditious method available. Include as much as possible applicable information as possible, including the positive train control system name of the model with the identification of the part with the component with the system involved, including the part and the numbers are applicable. Through the nature of the failure, malfunction, and the defective condition, mitigation taken to ensure the safety of the train operation, railroad employee, of the public, the estimated time of the correction of the failure, and event with all information required with the paragraph F3 with the sections not immediately available, the non-available information shall be forwarded to associated administrator as soon as practicable and supplement with the reports whenever the investigation of the accident surface the difficulty report show the positive train control system product is unsafe because of its manufacturing of the design defect. The railroad and its vendor or supplier and shall, upon request of the associated administrator, report the associated Associated Administrator with the result of the investigation, any of the action taken and proposed to correct the defect, the positive train control system, product suppliers and vendor list for the promptly report with any safety relevant failure of the defective condition previously unidentified has recommended with the mitigation action for the positive train control subsystem for the components of each of the railroad using the product, and notify the FRA with any of the safety relevant with the failure defective condition for the previously unidentified with the hazard discovered by the vendor with the supplier with the identity of each of the affected notified railroad. The requirements for this section do not apply with the failure of the malfunction of the defective condition of the list are caused by improper maintenance of the improper usage that have been previously identified to the FRA vendor for the supply of the appliance for the user railroad. When any safety critical positive train control system subsystem components fail to perform its intended function for the cause that shall be determined and fail, faulty product adjusted, repaired, replaced without undue delay until the corrective action is completed. The railroad shall take appropriate action to ensure the safety and reliability of the specified within the positive train control safety plan. Okay, any railroad experiencing the failure of the system resulting in a more of the favorable aspect of the intended other than the condition the hazard of movement of the train shall comply with the reporting with the requirements included with the marking of the telephonic report with the accident incident involving such failure under the parts 233 with the chapter filling of the one or more reports with under part 233 of this chapter does not exempt the railroad vendor or supplier from the recording of the requirements contained in this section. Alright, 236-1025, Reserve 236-1027, Positive Train Control System Exclusion. The requirements of the subdepartment apply with each of the office's automation system performs safety critical functions within effective the safety performance of the Positive Train Control System. For the purpose of this section, office automation systems means any of the centralized distribution computer-based system that is directly and indirectly controls the activity movement of the trains in the rail network. Change to the modification of the Positive Train Control System otherwise excluded from the requirements of the subpart of the section does not include the positive train control system from the requirements of the subpart within the change of the modification result of the degradation of safety and materials decreased for the safety critical functionality. Primary train control system can be integrated with the locomotive electronic system unless completely integrated systems have been shown to be designed with on fail-safe principle, have been demonstrated to operate in a full fail-safe method, have manual fail-safe fallback override to allow the locomotive to be brought to the safe stop in the event of any of the loss of electronic control, are included the approved and applicable to positive train control deployment and positive control safety plan with the positive train control system exclude the section from the requirements of the subpart remaining the subject of the subparts A through F of this part is applicable. Statute 236-1029 Postal Positive Train Control System and Use and Failures. When any of the safety critical positive train control components fail to perform the intended function, the cause must be determined and faulty component for the adjusted and repaired and replaced without undue delay until repair is such essential for the component for the completed with the railroad shall take an appropriate action as specified in the positive train control safety plan. And route failures expected to provide with the paragraph C and G of this action will controlling locomotive with the operating and or is to back operated with the positive control equipped track with the segment experience with the positive train control system failure with the positive train control system otherwise cut out with the well en route after the train with its depart with the initial terminal. The train may only continue in accordance with all the following: 1. Except for this provided in the paragraph B5 of the section where no block of the signal is in use, the train may be proceeded with a speed not exceeding 40 miles per hour. However, if involved with the train transporting one or more of the cars containing poisonous inhalation materials, excluding the cars containing only residual poisonous inhalation materials, the train may only proceed at a speed not exceeding 30 miles per hour. Where a block signal is in place, a passenger train may proceed at a speed not to exceed 59 miles per hour with the train with transporting one or more cars containing the poisonous inhalation materials, excluding those parts containing only the residual poisonous inhalation materials, may proceed with a speed not exceeding 40 miles per hour. Any other freight train may proceed with a speed not exceeding 49 miles per hour. Where a cab signal system is an automatic train signal train control system is in use, the train may proceed at a speed not exceeding 79 miles per hour. Report the failure cut out with must be made to the designated railroad officers, the host railroad, as soon as safe and practicable. There are positive train control systems and exclusive methods of delivering mandatory directive. The absolute block must be established in advance for the train as soon as safe practicable, and the train shall not exceed the restricted speed until the absolute blockage remains for the train is established. With the failure to cut out with the result of the defective onboard positive train control operators, the train may continue no farther than the next forward and designated the location on the repair exchange on the board with the positive train control apparatus. Exemption for the alternative system. The procedure for the railroad may submit with the approval of the positive train control safety plan. Request for approval in other order, particularly applicable with the alternative system failure with the procedure other than the required with the paragraph of the B with the section the FRA may in the discretion approve of such alternative system system failure procedures if and provide similar requirements for the equivalent greater level of safety as requirements of the paragraph B of the section. Each railroad shall comply with all provisions of the applicable positive train control deployment plan and safety plan to each of the positive train control systems. Use of the shall operate within the scope of the initial operational assumptions and predefined changes identified. The normal function of any of the safety critical positive train controls must not be interfered with the testing otherwise without the first taking the measure to provide for the safe movement of the trains, locomotive, the roadway workers, on-track equipment, depending on the normal functioning of the system. Reserve the temporary exemption ends from the October 21st, 2014 through the 24 months following with the date with required for the positive train control system implementation established by Section 20157 of the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code. Railroad positive train control safety plan, order particular of applicability may provide for the compliance with the en-route failure of the requirements of Statute 23567, so paragraph B of the section, whereas the controlling locomotive there is an operating within or to be operated within positive train control, equipped track segment, experience positive train control system failure with the positive train control system is otherwise cut out while en route. A train may proceed as described under each of the paragraph B of the section of the Statute 23567 for the positive train control system fails to initialized for any of the reasons prior to the train's departure for the initial of the terminal. The railroad's positive train control safety plan will provide with the temporary displaying of the positive train control system services with the necessary to perform the positive train control system repair maintenance for the paragraph of the G3 with the positive train control services does not refer to the failure of the onboard positive train control apparatus for a signal locomotive. The locomotive consists of the train. The positive train control service safety plan shall specifically appropriately operating rules to apply with the positive train control system temporarily disabled in accordance with this paragraph. G3. The railroad shall make the reasonable effort to schedule the temporary disabling positive train control service for the time posting for the least risk of the railroad safety. The railroad shall provide with the notice for the FRA regional office of the jurisdiction over the territory at least 7 days in advance of the planned temporary disabling of the positive train control system. The service of the temporary notice for the unplanned temporary disabling post-train control system. Service of the positive train control system is temporary with the disabled in accordance with the paragraph G3 with the place in the back of the service without undue delay. Annual report of the system failure annually by April 16th of each of the year of the following date with required for the positive train control implementation established by the Section 20157 Title 49 U.S. Standard Code. Each of the railroads should provide for the FRA with a report number of the positive train control failures occurred during the previous calendar year. But the report shall be identified the failures categories including but not limited to locomotive wayside communications back office system failures. Alright. 236, 1031. I'm going to cut the tape.